multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little.
As the Marvel Cinematic Universe barrels forward towards their adaptation of Secret Wars, I think it's safe to say that we're going to be introduced to some pretty wild characters from across the multiverse, especially villains. Sure, it's fun to see variants of our favorite heroes, but I'm particularly excited to meet some multiversal villains for those heroes to go up against, like Deadpool, Thundra, and Arno Stark, just to name a few. There's plenty more villainous variants that could show up in the MCU, so let's quit wasting time and take a look at some of them right now. Okay, so I'm starting this list off by cheating a little bit. Sue me.
You're gonna need a really good lawyer.
It's been previously confirmed that Ryan Reynolds will be reprising his role as Deadpool in the MCU. Unlike Professor X's cameo in Multiverse of Madness, it seems that the MCU's Deadpool will be the same one we previously saw in the Fox X-Men movies, and I imagine this will be largely chalked up to his already existing fourth wall breaking ability. I expect the Merc with the Mouth to be absolutely relentless whenever Deadpool 3 comes out, and we'd all better start preparing for jokes about how Moon Knight and Apocalypse look alike. While his solo movies have shown him in a bit more of a heroic light, I would love it if Deadpool went back to his OG comic roots as a full-on villain when he arrives in the MCU. He could see his new universe as a fresh start, and a chance to murder as many people as he wants to, seemingly without repercussions. This would enable his interactions with the MCU's X-Men to feel fresh, different, and a bit more menacing than his goofy relationship with the Fox team.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
The Maker is an alternate version of Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, who went mad with power and became a world-conquering supervillain. His goal is to quote-unquote improve as many dimensions as possible, though since he's a bad guy, we can guess that his idea of improvement probably involves a lot of people dying. The Maker was a key character in the 2015 Secret Wars storyline, where his inventions helped a number of refugees from the Ultimate Universe, including Miles Morales, travel to Earth 616. He ended up allying with R. Reed to take down God Emperor Doom, and he's continued to serve as an incredibly dangerous villain ever since this event. With both a Fantastic Four solo movie and Secret Wars on the horizon, I predict that we will eventually meet the Maker in the MCU. Reed, or at least a variant of him, was already set up in Multiverse of Madness as
the smartest man alive, Reed Richards.
So I think it's pretty likely that he will play a major role in Secret Wars. The multiverse is slowly collapsing in on itself thanks to all these incursions, so I could see the Maker attempting to take advantage of the chaos to conquer as many worlds as possible and grow his power. Like the comic Secret Wars, it would be fun to see him eventually realize that the best option is to join forces with his main counterpart, potentially even opening the door for a smaller scale adaptation of the Council of Reeds. Speaking of the Ultimate Universe, let's talk about Mysterio. In the MCU, we were first introduced to Fishbowl Head as a universe-hopping hero who was an ally of Spider-Man and Nick Fury. But, of course, this all turned out to be a sham, and Mysterio was revealed to be nothing more than a glory-seeking supervillain. However, in the comics, Mysterio actually does have a history of hopping between universes. At some point, the Master of Illusion created a robotic duplicate of himself and sent it over to the Ultimate Universe, controlling it as part of a long-term scheme to trap Spider-Man in that alternate universe forever. This was one of the first major crossovers between the mainstream and Ultimate Universes, and Mysterio even ended up being held prisoner in the latter universe for a while, before eventually returning to our Earth during Secret Wars. Mysterio currently seems to be dead in the MCU, but come Secret Wars, I'd love to see him return in some way. Maybe we could take a page from the comics and reveal that he's been hiding out in another universe since his apparent death. Or maybe we could meet a variant of him that's as great of a sorcerer as he initially claimed to be. I'll admit, I'm not huge on the What If series, but I would absolutely be first in line to check out what if Mysterio was the Sorcerer Supreme.
Mysterio is the master of the arcane art!
It's been confirmed that Kang will be the Marvel Cinematic Universe's next big villain, and the Conqueror feels like a perfect fit for the multiverse saga. In the comic book source material, the blue-faced bad guy's MO is to wreak havoc through time and across the multiverse, ensuring that there will be variants of him spread all throughout the time stream. While Kang is a major threat on his own, his alternate selves are no slouches either. The variants of him we most regularly see are Ramatut, a version of Kang from ancient Egypt, Immortus, an older version of the villain who preserves the timeline, the Scarlet Centurion, a version inspired by Doctor Doom, and Iron Lad, a younger variant of the villain who became a hero instead of a villain. Many of the elements of Immortus' character were transplanted to He Who Remains, who we met in Loki Season 1, but the rest of these variants are fair game. With Kang serving as the main antagonist of Avengers 5, it's pretty much a certainty that we'll see his variants all over the MCU in the near future. My money's on Iron Lad being the next one we meet, though I could also also see Ramatut having some sort of involvement with the Fantastic Four or the Eternals. At this point, only time will tell exactly which variants we'll see and where, but then again, Kang has all the time in the world. Thundra is basically Marvel's villainous answer to Wonder Woman. She hails from the alternate future of Earth 715, in which incredibly powerful female warriors known as Femizons have taken over the planet. Thundra is the Femizons' greatest fighter, and on several occasions she's traveled to our world to fight some of the greatest male heroes of the Marvel Universe and prove her strength. She's gone toe-to-toe with super strong characters like the Incredible Hulk and The Thing, and she's also been a member of the villainous Frightful Four. But Thundra also has a noble side that has caused her to team up with the Fantastic Four a number of times. Putting it frankly, I feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe could really benefit from more female villains. I mean, sure, in recent years we started seeing some more of them pop up, like Titania, Flag Smasher, and even Scarlet Witch, but I think we should continue to see even more, especially considering how many great female bad guys Marvel has.
I'm at the top of my game. I'm right up there with the big dogs. Girls, come on.
It would be great to see Thundra cross over into the main MCU and immediately show our heroes who's boss. Usually in the MCU we have women fight women, but I would love it if Thundra showed up on the scene and absolutely whooped one of our overconfident male heroes, like Ant-Man or Thor. This would show that she's an incredibly serious threat, and she would be a great villain to have show up in different places all over the MCU before eventually making it to Secret Wars. Maybe she could train with the new 10 Rings, maybe she could fight the Fantastic Four, maybe she could even be part of the Thunderbolts. There's a ton of possibilities for Thundra in the MCU, and I'm hopeful that we'll meet a big screen version of the Femizon Warrior sometime soon. It's been, shall we say, interesting watching the Hulk's evolution in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He started out as a truly terrifying and uncontrollable rage monster, and now he wears glasses and says bruh.
Bruh.
Hulk's main story arc has been his quest to find a way to control both Bruce Banner and the other guy, and in recent years he seems to have finally gotten there. Now that he, at long last, has found peace and balance, I think it's time to put all that to the test and introduce the Maestro, an evil version of the Hulk who seeks to rule the world. This version of the character originates from Earth 9200, where most of the world was destroyed by nuclear war, allowing him to absorb even more radiation and consequently become incredibly powerful. The introduction of the Maestro to the MCU would really be a win for everyone. For the fans who don't really like the more peaceful direction that Marvel Studios has taken the Hulk, this would be a chance to finally see a version of the character go wild and destroy stuff again, 2008 style. But for the people who do prefer Professor Hulk, the presence of the Maestro would show off the dichotomy of the character, and demonstrate how far Bruce has come in terms of his character growth.
I'm a completely different person now, literally.
If nothing else, seeing two incredibly smart but diametrically opposed versions of the Hulk facing off against each other would do a lot to help the public perception that Marvel has no real idea what to do with the character. At the very least, it would probably be more interesting than just sending him off into space again. Yeah, not quite. Justice Peace is a special agent of the Time Variance Authority who travels throughout the timeline, fighting evildoers and generally trying to ensure that time itself stays stable. While you would think this would make him a good guy, his hard on crime, take no prisoners attitude means that he's more than willing to take the law into his own hands in incredibly violent ways. And this approach has caused him to battle with heroes like Thor, the Fantastic Four, and She-Hulk. Obviously, Justice Peace is, on the surface, little more than a Judge Dredd parody from Marvel. However, when it comes to the MCU, I could actually see him taking on a fairly major role. The second season of Loki will be releasing in 2023, and it will presumably focus on the Trickster God as he deals with the fact that Kang the Conqueror now rules the TVA. As part of this change in leadership, I could see Justice Peace being introduced as one of Kang's main enforcers, traveling all throughout time and dealing out his leader's twisted form of justice throughout phases 5 and 6. There's a lot of potential for him as a dumb, fun, peacemaker type character, and his unique status as an elite TVA agent means that he can travel to whichever time or alternate universe he wants to. Deep down, Peace isn't a bad guy, but his rabid dedication to ensuring that justice is served can make him a serious threat who has the potential to pose a real challenge for our heroes. I really like Spider-Man No Way Home, but there's one big thing about it that really gets my goat. We were so close to finally getting a big screen Sinister Six. But while the rest of these multiversal bad guys were fighting the Spider-Men at the Statue of Liberty, the film's post-credit scene revealed that Eddie Brock, aka Venom, one of Spider-Man's greatest villains, was off getting drunk at a bar somewhere. All we needed was for him to show up for the final battle. We literally only needed one more villain.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
To be fair, not all hope is lost, since Eddie ended up leaving behind a piece of his symbiote before being sent back to his own universe. But as much as I would love to see the black suit take over someone like Matt Gargan and create the MCU's own version of Venom, I can't deny that it would be incredibly fun to have Tom Hardy's Eddie return to the MCU for Secret Wars. Thanks to the fact that the symbiotes are all psychically linked, Eddie will most likely retain his memory of Spider-Man's true identity, and this would make a potential battle between the two quite personal. Fans have been asking for Hardy's Venom to fight Tom Holland's Spider-Man for years, and when you combine that with the fact that the comic Secret Wars was where Peter first got his black suit, the stage is pretty much set for these two dark mirrors of each other to finally face off. The only thing that really stands in the way of the two Toms finally meeting each other on the silver screen is Marvel Studios and Sony's infamous agreement to share the Webheads movie rights. Clearly, Sony doesn't have a problem dropping Spidey into the MCU, but they may feel a bit differently about Venom, especially since they seem to be intent on using him to start their own Sinister Six cinematic universe. Wow, say that 5 times fast. Personally, I think that bringing Hardy's Venom back for Secret Wars is a no-brainer. And you know what? To appease all those Morb heads over at Sony, we can even have him be joined by Vulture and Morbius.
Intriguing.
The time-traveling, universe-reshaping cyborg Korvac was once an ordinary computer technician on the alternate Earth 691, and he ended up being experimented on by a hostile alien race, who forcibly transformed him into a cyborg. This ended up being a huge mistake, since his new cybernetic parts had granted him incredible power, and Korvac killed his captors and began a campaign to take over the multiverse. The first time he ever traveled to Earth 616 was when the Grandmaster brought him there to fight Doctor Strange and the Defenders, and since then Korvac has had his sights set on our Earth. He even once absorbed the power of Galactus, but he was defeated by the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Woo, thanks guys. Korvac would be a great addition to the MCU because of his pure level of power. He's basically a cosmic Terminator, unable to be defeated by any normal means and completely dedicated to his goal. He's not someone that you can outquip or even really outfight. Instead, you just have to outthink him. Well, it's a good thing our smartest hero just died, right? Speaking of Tony Stark, he's not the only member of his family to put on an iron suit. Sure, we all know about Pepper Potts suiting up as Rescue, but did you know Tony has a long-lost brother named Arno? Well, at least on Earth 616. On Earth 8410, which is where Arno Stark originally came from, his exact relation to Tony is unclear. But what is clear is their shared enjoyment of being Iron Man. Rather than serving as a protector of Earth like Tony, Arno sells his services to the highest bidder as a mercenary. Over the years, he's fought heroes like Machine Man, Spider-Man, and even Tony himself, though in recent years, he's turned over a new leaf. Meanwhile, Earth 616's version of Arno is a flat-out supervillain who's tried his hand at various schemes to take over the world, usually finding himself defeated by his brother. In terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Arno Stark could provide a much-needed shot of internal conflict for our heroes. Who is this guy who says he's Tony Stark's brother? Tony saved the world, right? So we can trust this dude, right? Wait, where did he say he came from? Another universe?
It just raises too many questions.
All the while, Arno could be working to reactivate Tony's technology and try to make a power play for himself. I could see him showing up in either the Ironheart or the Armor Wars series, before returning in a bigger role in Secret Wars. In an alternate universe, Clyde Wincham Jr. was the only person to ever manifest mutant powers, and he was placed under study by Mr. Fantastic. When a number of supervillains attacked their base, Clyde killed them all and realized that he really enjoyed the feeling. Adopting the title of the Marquis of Death, Clyde began to use his powers to travel the multiverse and destroy any worlds he came across. Now, the Marquis of Death isn't exactly a well-known character, but I still think he could make a good addition to the MCU. There's no telling what could come out of the madness of the multiverse, and it makes sense that some people would be so dramatically affected by it that they would just snap. Not like that. The Marquis of Death is a nearly unstoppable foe, and he was only beaten by Dr. Doom, who it turns out was an apprentice of his years ago. He would bring some true menace to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which feels much needed in an era where everything just kinda gets turned into a joke. Plus, I'm all for anything that brings us closer to getting Dr. Doom in the MCU. Last up on our list, we have another Loki variant.
There's a big surprise!
Yeah, with how much we've seen the Trickster God pop up over the last few years, we can basically expect to see versions of him continue to appear for as long as Marvel itself exists. But I want to take a look at one specific version of the character from Earth 14412, who is better known as King Loki. This version of the villain destroyed the Earth, and frequently meddles with the timeline in an attempt to force certain events to happen. This variant of Loki is by far one of the most powerful, and he's driven by a sadistic desire to make his brother suffer. He's even traveled to the past of Earth 616 in order to ensure that his younger counterpart there stays on the path of evil. King Loki was also involved in 2015 Secret Wars, and in recent years he's battled both Ego the Living Planet and Gore the God Butcher. Obviously, I'm thinking that the best place for King Loki to show up in the MCU is in Season 2 of the Trickster Gods Disney Plus series. We already saw some of this particular variant's traits in Kid Loki and Classic Loki in Season 1, but no matter how devious they may be, each major version of the character we've met so far has some redeeming traits. I think the next step is to just introduce us to a truly heinous, despicable version of the character, because come on guys, it's just been far too long since Tom Hiddleston was allowed to cut loose and really ham it up as a bad guy. Hey folks, thank you for watching. I'm Matt Sonnack, I made this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more fun comic book content. Let us know in the comments which multiversal villains you would like to see menace the MCU. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.